Hello, my name is Paul Bartlett. I'm a wood turner here in Southwest Florida. In this video, I want to show you how I create what I call my fin bowls. And I've done several of them. This is one that I've done. This was made out of Sipo. That's a turned bowl with an epoxy finish on it. Then you cut your fins and cast it again in epoxy. So here's another one I've made. This is a little bit bigger one, also out of Sipo wood. And the one we're going to do today is going to look very similar to this. Okay, it won't have the missing fins. Sometimes you have to make the best of a bad situation, so this was a case. And the bowl I'm going to make it out of is the bowl that was created in my last video titled the BB stave system. So this is the bowl we'll be using, and so I'm going to show you how I do it. To start out with, we need to figure out how many fins we can cut in the bowl. So the way I do that is, here's my bowl. Okay, 8.5 in the top, and it's 3 7/8 of an inch to the top of the base that I added in. So what you do to create the calculate the number of fins is you take the 3 7/8 times pi equals 12.167, or 12 3/16. Then you take the saw curve, which is, I use an 1/8 of an inch blade, and the minimum fin width, which I want down here at the bottom, is 3/16. Add those together and you get 5/16 of an inch. So you take the circumference of the bottom, 3 7/8, and take that number, which is 12.167, divided by 5/16, which is the total, and it equals 39 fins with the curve. So now you take the 8.5 inch diameter times pi equals 26.69, or 11/16. Divide it by the number of fins, and it equals 0.684. Subtract the curve, 0.125, and it equals 0.559, or 9/16, which is what you'll be using when you set up your index marks on the throat plate of the table saw, as you'll see soon. Okay, so there are 9/16 here and 3/16 there. And that's kind of the way I do it. So our next stop will be at the table saw. I'll show you my jig and how we do it. Okay, before we get to the table saw, we have to put this 1-inch dowel, hot glue it onto the base of the bowl. And I do it in the lathe here. It just helps keep things centered a little bit. Okay, we're going to cut the fins now on the bowl, and this is the fixture that I use here. You can see they go in both miter slots on the table saw. The bowl has the 1/8 dowel on the end of it. I have the back of the fixture has this piece here, which is adjustable up and down, and I put my bowl in it, post in here in the hole, adjust it so that when it's in the miter slot, the ball is just barely touching the tabletop. And I have this little handle type thing here that keeps the bowl up tight against the fixture and gives me something to grab when I need to index the bowl. So I just put this on here like that, and making sure the bowl is tight, I just tighten that down a little bit. Doesn't take much. Okay, I put a 1/8 kerf blade in my table saw. Normally I use the thinner kerf, and so we put the fixture here, and my fins to end on the outside of the bowl at the very beginning of the base that I added on. So to make the cut, I kind of creep up on it for the first one, and then I set a depth stop here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and see. Doesn't matter where you start. Don't try to start on a glue line. It really doesn't matter. You just start anywhere. So I'm going to turn the first one through and see what happens. Okay, I can tell I haven't gone anywhere deep enough, so my stop has actually got to go back quite a bit. So I'm just going to put it back, way back, and I'm going to stop by eyeballing through the outside. So we'll do that again. Okay, I've got it where I want it now. I'll show you where, if you can see that, where I want my fin to stop. I'm not sure if that's visible. Okay, so now what I do is I'm going to just put that back in there. I'm going to set my stop now. So there's as far as I'm going to go. I just use this stop here, bring it up to the fixture, the jig here, and I'm good to go. Now, for the indexing, I'm hoping you can see what I have here for the index, but I put some whiteout down here on the throat plate, and we know from the calculations that I want a 9/16 wide fin at the top, so I put a line in 9/16 of an inch from the right hand side of the blade, put a line in, and then I put another line an eighth of an inch over, which is my kerf. So all I do is I take this bowl and I line that kerf up with my kerf lines on the choke plate, and I'm good to go. So let's do a few more. So you just keep on doing that until you get all the way around, and about before you only have maybe 2 or 3 left, you take a look at how much you got left to cut, and just kind of divide that up. So it's not going to come out perfect. So you just divide that up into 2 or 3 fins to make it equal. Nobody will ever notice a fin is just slightly narrower or wider than another. So that's it for now. We will continue on. Okay, here's the fin bowl with all the fins cut in it. I took the post off of the bottom. And just a side note here, anybody that uses hot glue for temporary holding jigs or anything, when you want to remove them, some of you may know this, some of you may not, if you use alcohol, denatured alcohol, I keep mine in a little spray thing. All I did was fill that little recess, and within 30 seconds I was able to pull that post right off of there. It just, and it works on anything. You got to clean hot glue up off of anything, just spray some alcohol on it, and you can peel it right off with your fingers. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to cast this bowl in resin. And so first thing I'm going to do is I mixed up 6 ounces already, and this is the epoxy I use. It's noted in a reference to it in my previous video, BB stage system. So what I do is I pour this into my outside mold, which is here. And my outside molds, I had to extend the top a little bit because the bowls are a little too shallow. And my inside mold, I had to do the same thing. So I'm going to pour 6 ounces into the outside mold. Just like that. Now I'm going to take this bowl and set it in there. Now I've had problems with bubbles before, and I think it's because of this recess in the bottom that it trapped air, and I would get bubbles on my first pour like this. So I've added some little epoxy 1/8 diameter rod that I had made. So I'm hoping that'll let the epoxy go in there and let all the air out. So I'm putting it in here like this. And now I want to I'm using these little wedges just to center the bowl as much as I can. They don't go in far. So I use 4 of them. And I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take I also have these molds sprayed with just a mold release. I don't have any to recommend. I've tried all different ones. I don't think anyone works better than another. So just any mold release. Now I'm putting this bowl in here and I'm going to center it up. I can see through the bottom, so that should help me center it up. Okay. That epoxy didn't come up as far as I wanted it to, so, but I'm going to use, I got a weight here, one of my big chucks that I'm going to put in here just to keep things from floating if they wanted to. So that's pretty much it for the first start. Then I'll be pouring, I'll let it set overnight, I'll put it in a pressure pot. And then I'll be pouring 6 ounces at a time. I may put the second one in the pressure pot, we'll see how it comes out. This is the first time I've used the pressure pot for this type of bowl. Most of them I've done are too big, so I'll set this in the pressure pot. Just fits. Okay, we got about 50 pounds there. We're going to let that set overnight and see what we have in the morning. Okay, I have the bowl out of the mold and it looks pretty good. The pressure pot is definitely the way to go if they'll fit in there. And I don't see any bubbles at all. My bottom looks perfect. And this was the outside bowl. The outside mold, I've used this probably 6 times. They release out of this for no problem at all. My inside bowl mold was just a cheap plastic bowl, but it had the right shape, and I never have any luck getting those out. It's still in here. So I'm going to turn it, put it on the lathe now, and true up this top edge to get it parallel to the bottom. And I will probably be able to pick it out of there then, or even turn it out, doesn't matter. I'm going to turn it inside and outside anyway. So our next stop is going to be on the lathe. So I guess if you can get a look at that before we put it on the lathe. It looks pretty good to me. Okay, I have it on the lathe, centered up as best as I can, parallel to the bottom. So I'm going to cut this surface here and true up the outside so I can reverse it and put it in my cold jaws and rebore my base so I can chuck it up and turn the inside and the outside. The tool I use for epoxy is I use the Easy Wood negative rake scrapers. Any negative rake scraper I have, actually like a skew chisel used as a scraper, or any negative rake scraper works good. The others don't seem to work that well. So let's see what happens here. Okay, that's pretty flat for putting it back in the coal jaws. And it looks pretty even above the wooden staves. So now I'm going to just try to true up the outside diameter. Pretty good right there. So now I'll turn it around and bore the base out. Alright, I turned the bowl around, put the recess in for my chuck, and I turned the inside out. I turned that old plastic mold bowl out of there. And I try to get this as thin as possible, and then we're going to give it another coat on the slow turner. So I came through onto the wood here some places. That's fine. That doesn't really matter. The bowl, is a little offset more than I'd like, but I think it'll be fine. So now I'm going to turn the outside. I'm going to show you another little thing I do now when I'm pretty smooth, but I really need to get a couple of little bumps out of there, and don't seem to be doing it with the chisel. So, okay, what I use is cabinet scrapers, just cheap cabinet scrapers. I sharpen them. I put a burr on them on my disc sander, just running it around, and I find these work really, really well. So if I can find the sharp side here. Just got to do a little bit in here. I turn it down to about 160. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that cup takes that off there and allows you to much smoother finish. Much better. Much better. Okay, I think that's probably good enough there. So we'll stop here and go to finish it. Okay, what I do now is I just sand this with 120 and then maybe 150 and 220, and it's ready to go on the slow turner. Sand it up around 800 or so. Probably not even necessary, but everything will blend in with the epoxy. Okay, we've got the bowl ready to go on the slow turner. I showed this process in my last video, BB stave system, so I'm just going to quickly cover it here. And here we go. I've mixed my epoxy up. Only mixed about 3 ounces, and I'm not going to put it on very thick. This may take more than one coat because I've came through the wood to the wood in some places. That's all right. Okay, here's the finished bowl. I've turned it inside, outside. I've got a uniform wall thickness on it. I've got the base finished. It came out pretty good using the pressure pot. It seems to be much better. So I was going to do a third video on how to make the floating segment bowl, which is like this, okay, and I had another one that I did in a different wood that is like this, but I think I can just quickly explain rather than doing another whole video. If you take this bowl here, and before I turned the inside out, where I had the actually inside mold still stuck in there, you would leave that alone. You would turn the outside to the shape you want, even if it exposes the wood a little bit, that's fine. And then you would cut these, I use a 1/4 inch parting tool. You would kind of measure off even spaces here where you wanted your grooves, mark them, and then just turn the outside groove with a 1/4 inch parting tool until all the wood is gone, and you have just you're turned away all the wood, and the inside, because you haven't done anything, will hold the whole bowl together. There won't be any problem. So you turn those grooves in there like this, okay, and then you would take and you would put it back in the outside mold, you would then, I've already taken the extension of this bowl off, so you need to put the extension back on. Then you would just pour resin in. I still do 6 ounces at a time, and put it in the pressure pot. And when you're done, then you can turn out the inside and the outside to get the profile you want, and put a final coat on the inside and the outside on the slow turner, and that ends you up with a bowl similar to this. So that's about all there is to it. Thank you for watching.